everybody. Welcome to our final seminar of the day. I'd like to welcome back Frances Harder. She is the founder, CEO, president of Fashion for Profit. And today she's going to be going over what I've been told is a very intense presentation on costing a product, costing your product, costing your garment. Very, very important part of successfully launching and running a apparel business. So we do have a chat box. If anybody has any questions along the way, please feel free to put them either in there or preferably in the Q&A section, and we will address those questions at the very end. And between now and then, I'll be running support on this side. But Frances, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so here we're going to be talking about costing of anybody who's doing any business, and where they're starting up often forgets this important part. So I'm going on, first of all, to introduce myself. Those of you who don't know me, I was trained originally as a designer in England and went to work in the industry, and then was invited back to teach. So I've had a really varied experience in my career. And so teaching and also being in the industry is being a big part of where I am now. I wrote a book, Fashion for Profit, because I realized that colleges weren't teaching the business side. And in 1999, I founded Fashion Business Incorporated with a partner here. And it was really about training, business training, job training. And we were in business for just under 20 years. And it's been an amazing experience. Unfortunately, we closed due to budgeting problems, and the building had been bought out, so we lost our free rent. Anyway, I also serve as a global consultant for the United Nations, and worked with Peru and Nepal. Nepal for Kashmir and Peru for their alpaca. Just about to start a new project in Egypt, working with cotton producers. So, and beside that, my own design experiences was working for I had my name under license in Japan. I designed for Priscilla Presley for Home Shopping. I was fortunate enough to be invited to design for the Royal House of Brunei. And on the side, I do quite a bit of expert witness work, which is quite interesting. So that's me. And so we get going. We do have a fashion academy. For those of you who need more information, you can go to our website and we can assist you with any levels of information that you need. So please make sure you do look at the website, and any of you who are interested, the book has a special price for this for the show this week. Okay, so we're going to talk about why does a dress cost $300 at Neiman Marcus and $29 at Target? What goes into producing these garments that make it so much more expensive in one retail outlet as opposed to another? And I'm sure that those of you who've been in the industry, you can analyze some of these garments and go, wow, how is that possible? And sometimes, you know, is it the complexity of design, status of the label or the brand? Is it produced offshore or domestically? Is it the fabric cost, retailer's store that sells it in? These things are really taking into, those of you who understand production, you need to analyze this. Of course, with Target, they're producing masses of amounts, so they can at least, they have some wiggle room there. Maybe their markup price is not quite as high as, say, Neiman Marcus, who unfortunately, as we know, is going out of business. Maybe that $300 dress should have been a little cheaper. Anyway, to this consumer, the cost of the clothing is often a perceived value. And you know, people who go shopping in expensive stores maybe won't go into a Target. So having a good understanding of the cost of goods is really important for you as you begin this process. So many ways of calculating your wholesale price, or cost of goods, we called it, COGS. The final calculations must result in a profit. One small miscalculation or forgotten cost could be devastating to the profit margin, which will undermine the survival of a business. So often find that small creative companies are preoccupied with designing and underestimate the importance of costing and calculating the actual costs of overheads. I've been guilty. I have a garage full of fabrics. I go to these trade shows. I keep sampling, and you know, I'm finding now I'm making masks, and I have cupboards full of yards of fabric and oftentimes silk. So the silk's now being used for lining masks, which I actually like. So costs are not always correctly detailed until after market and the orders are written. This is a huge, huge mistake. So realizing cost involved in manufacturing and what it costs to operate your business. So determine price point. Your price point will usually be determined by your selling price at retail. So important to stay within the chosen price range. And you know that. So if you are thinking of selling to Target, or you're thinking of selling to Walmart or Costco, understand what you're selling it for. I'm amazed when I go into places like Costco and they've got branded goods that are selling at ridiculous prices. But Costco markup is so much less than a normal retailer. So who is your target market and what will they pay? Identify who your competition and price points. What is your wholesale and retail price range when working backwards? So one of those things is sort of start with, okay, I'm seeing a retail price of $120. So that means possibly the retailer has purchased that from the manufacturer for around $50. The manufacturers hopefully made those goods for around about $20. And you've got to keep working that backwards, and you realize how really you have to structure your price points so that it matches where your selling prices are going to be. Quality styling must be retained for your market niche and your brand. Remember, your brand is something that people will return to purchase, hopefully. It's part of the branding process. Remember, if your selling price is too high, you'll cost yourself out of the chosen marketplace. So again, realizing costs. If your margins are too low, you're in danger of not making a profit. So keep control. And a lot of times creative people are too creative and not understanding what the cost of goods in fact are. Cost is the only variable which can be controlled by you. So the price equals the cost plus your profit. Understand the key elements when costing will assure a gross and a net profit margin. Understand what is a gross and what is a net profit margin. So check your maths. Can your garment stand the retail markup of 120% or 2.2 and still have a customer demand for your product? You must consistently deliver three things. You must consistently think of your price points, quality, and on-time delivery. It's huge. On-time delivery in America, big, big mistake to deliver late. You'll get canceled orders and chargebacks. So 3 stages of costing. Number 1, the actual cost of production. Cost to produce a garment is determined by the fabric, design, production process, which can only be reduced by modifying or changing the garment. If produced offshore, this is the landed cost, including freight and duty. So number 2, cost plus your markup percentage is determined by a couple of factors. How many units that are needed to manufacture in order to cover overhead costs to realize a profit. So once you've gone out and talked to your contractor and he's given you a price for producing the goods, he will give you a price determined on how many pieces he's going to make for you. So he's saying, okay, I'll be making that pair of pants for $12, and that's based on producing 500 units. So remember, you need to get that in place. What can your market niche stand? This should be your business in your business plan and be your standby rule. So number 3, retail selling price. Having a realistic understanding of the price structure of the market niche will help when determining the final price. Important, the final retail price must always be considered when choosing fabric, trims, and design. So profit margin. Your profit margin is determined by you and should not be undercut. Warning, a large potential order from a department store may reduce your profit margin. If you get a large order, it is not necessarily in your company's best interest. Rework your numbers before accepting orders if they are requesting discounts. So a big department store can come to you and say, I'm ordering X amount, but I want a discount of 8%. And I need this delivered by this date. And I need to make sure that the tops and bottoms are all being shipped together. This will be in your contract. Understand that contract before you sign it. What will that ramifications mean to you? And of course, realizing when you're working with a department store, oftentimes they don't deliver, they don't pay you for 60 days and past that. And if there's any misdemeanor on the way, you're going to get chargebacks. Check with your contractor to see if they will discount their cost for larger orders. However, if you don't get the agreed to orders that your contractor requires for his production run, don't take the order because you'll be losing money. Take the time to read all sale documents of the agreements. Handling costs. So direct sales and smaller orders from specialty stores require more handling. So those of you who may be doing, say, internet sales and you're shipping from your own home or you're shipping from one orders, this takes more time. So think about how much does it cost to ship one order compared to, say, shipping 1,000 of one unit. So thinking of what that impact is going to be for you to ship one order yourself if you're beginning this process. Okay, what do you want to get paid per hour? So you know that somebody in a warehouse is probably getting about $15, $16 an hour. So what is it and how long does it take to put together that order? More hands-on time to pick and pack for small shipments. This will increase hourly time needed to complete the process. Incorrect costing will result in losses. Underestimating or guessing costs can be disastrous to your long-term success. I've seen this so many times that people have got samples made and they've sent it to the showroom and the showroom said, what are we going to cost this for? Oh, we haven't had time to do the costing yet. It's similar to the one we did last season. Put it down for $29.99. Big mistake. Costs should be done before any orders are written. Projecting the size of your production will affect your costing. Know your minimum orders from each style. Don't be tempted to sell onesies and twosies. Never guess cutting price, labor, trims, or yardage. Rework your cost sheets if a style is carried over to a second season. I was asked to consult for a company and they were losing money. They were doing lingerie. And selling to Victoria's Secrets. Now, Victoria's Secrets is closed up, and to Fredericks and Hollywood. I'm not sure if they're still in business. But anyway, they had one particular teddy that was selling season after season. Well, they never reworked their cost sheet. So what happens? Okay, so they originally had this wonderful style, a nice teddy that was originally being made in 60-inch goods. And then they got reorder season after season. However, Victoria's Secrets requested a different type of fabrication. Okay, fine, that's great. However, that fabric was only 45 inches wide. So how does that impact your costs? Of course, Fredericks wanted the same price point as had been originally quoted to them. However, this company that I was working with, and they'd asked me to come and consult, they were shocked when I said, you are carrying over a style that was originally made in 60-inch goods to 45-inch goods. So that means they had to make a whole new market. The yield for the fabric is going to go up. So the price went up. So this was never accounted for. So these are the things that you need to really, really think about when you're carrying forward styles into a next season. So your major costs, your fabrics, of course, when you're going out there and you're shopping online now at these trade shows, your fabric. So you're looking for, you decided to do a linen and okay, you go out and shop for the linens and your linen is maybe $4 a yard. And so you need to think about, okay, your fabric yardage is going to be 1.5 yards. So you're already up to, I think I said $4 a yard. So you're up to $6 a yard. Your trims, your zippers, maybe another $1.50. So we're up to $7.50. Labor is going to be, say, another $15. So we're already up to $22.50. And thinking then of other things that you're going to be adding on top of that. Remember, your sales reps are maybe 12% or 15%. Are you going to be adding that? So your overheads, your rent, you can't add all that, but you might come to add a certain percentage for each cost sheet. So I'm adding on, say, another 15%. So remember, the bigger the order, the unit labor prices should decrease. Important to project the amount of goods you need to sell. It is often hard, but must be planned for. How do you know how many units you're going to sell? You don't know. However, you must say, well, we had something similar a couple of seasons ago. It sold this amount. And oftentimes you'll find what you think is going to be the best seller is often not. So again, planning for it. And sometimes you've got what we call a loss leader. There's one piece that's in there that ties together all the other pieces within the group. And then you may lose money on one, but you need to keep it in the group in order for you to keep the group united. Okay, so cash flow, identifying potential sources of funding before the need arises. How much money do you have? Remember, you need the money first. The money's going out before the money comes in. And so people who start these businesses without money, you're just fooling yourself. Identify where your money is coming from before you to produce the goods. Once you know how much money you've got, that will also assist you with how many units you can agree to produce. Understand your financial plan on your cash flow needs. It's hard for creative people sometimes. So turning away orders can be hard, but if the funds are not available to produce your orders, you may have no alternative. Investigate all funding options before going to market. Even with the best of plans, costs are always higher than expected. Cash flow is the name of the game. Know when you'll be paid in order to pay your vendors. Whenever be prepared for late payers. It's always the same. And I've been in many factories, and on the wall they've got in their accounts department, they will have a projection of when money is expected to come in and when money is expected to go out, because you don't want that money going out before your money's coming in. Otherwise, you're going to have a big cash problem. So ask buyers to pay with their credit card. This is normal these days. So if you do happen to go to a show and you get orders, get their credit card information and do a credit check before you ship the orders. Sometimes they might give you an old credit card with, you know, suddenly you've shipped the goods and you try to cash on the credit cards on the day you ship, and suddenly you find out that that credit card is actually no longer in existence. So when you get a credit card payment from a buyer, do a credit check. And you let them know the day you ship that you are charging their card. This is normal practice for small specialty stores and really helps the cash flow. A very good reason to stay loyal to small stores. Again, it's built on relationships. The more good relationships you can build, then they're going to likelihood of them to come back and buy from you again. Department stores, as we know, are a huge difference. And department stores are having their whole problems now. So they're going to squeeze you any way they can. They rarely pay on time and often charge back to you for reasonable and unreasonable infractions. Having a good understanding of working capital is imperative. So what about selling seasons? They're changing all the time. There's not so many sales. We used to have 5 or 6 selling seasons. Now we're seeing buyers are buying monthly. So important to make as much money as possible during the selling months. So if you're like selling swimwear, there's only a certain window of sales that you can do that. And so what are you going to calculate for the seasons when we call them off seasons? How are you going to survive then? It's important for you to make these projections. If your sales are not always on the rise, you need to calculate your monthly overheads to meet the downtime in your sales cycle. This particularly will be effective for those of you who are doing sort of seasonal wear, whether it's ski wear or swimwear. What sales do you need to cover your overheads? Remember, overheads will increase as your sales rise. So if you're working from home, of course, you've got a small office space, that's fine. Then as you grow, you may have to start renting space. So suddenly you've got much more overheads. Maybe you're employing someone instead of contracting out. So that's another problem. How easy will it be if sales go down to meet the monthly overheads? Speed to market, monthly sales equal cash flow. So remember, we're looking at speed to market. How fast can you turn around, produce the goods, get them shipped out, get paid? So there are reasons the speed to market, not only for the stores, specialty stores, they're buying closer to the time. They are sort of seeing what's going on, as we're knowing now, of course, with this horrible situation that we're all living through. Stores are closed, and so they can't make any sales. So what's happening with all that inventory that's sitting on the floors there? Are they going to ship it back to you and not pay? Be prepared. These are things that are going to be devastating to many manufacturers and to many stores, as we're seeing. So final selling price. The final selling price is a product of the total cost of goods sold. If produced overseas, this is landed cost equal finished product plus freight plus duty plus financing cost if using a PO or an LLC, plus currency conversion if paying in a foreign currency, not advisable. Try to always negotiate in dollars. Taking all this into account, does your final retail price allow you to sell your product competitively? So what are your fixed costs? It's important to be aware of them and to track all your fixed costs. So staff, full-time and part-time. Design development, too often overlooked. Sampling fabric. As I said earlier, designers tend to just buy too many sampling fabrics. Give your designer a budget. And then your first patterns, how much are you paying to have your first patterns made? A lot of people undercalculate how much it costs to actually produce a pattern and a sample, and then a production pattern. So these are the things that you need to think about when you're producing garments. Are you going out there and having somebody doing your full package? Are they developing the first patterns? Are they developing the production patterns? So I always say you can calculate a first pattern, a sample, and maybe a production pattern. You're looking at least $750. And don't get twisted up about this. Of course it costs money, it's their time. Depending on the complexity of the design, they have to analyze it. Of course, they may be using a block and you may have your own block that you're working with. Then they're going to be doing a sample made, a fit, making sure that it is to their specifications or your specifications. And then once it's approved, they're going to be doing costing and the production patterns. And of course, you've always got quality control, you've always got bookkeeping, and then there is the shipping to deal with. So what are your overhead costs? Fixed costs should not be forgotten. That includes your rent, your electricity, your payroll. Keep an eye on these expenses when figuring your markup margin. So calculating your fixed cost, office staff salaries, better to employ part-time staff or hourly paid rate workers. Otherwise, you're going to be having to pay them benefits. So full-time salaries with benefits can add another 30 cents per hour on the dollar paid. Rent, calculate out as much as possible. Contract out as much as possible. Utilities, how much is that costing? Lease rather than buy equipment. That's your monthly payments, which you can then amortize. Easier to figure into accounting rather than a large cash outlay. If you have 30% gross profit margin and your fixed expenses are 10% of your net sales, this will undermine your profit. If that is the case, reduce your fixed expenses. Realistic percentage for fixed overheads should be around 5 to 7%. So should you add overheads to your cost sheet? It is important to list all, is it important to list all expenses in a cost sheet? Often this method can cost a company out of a market, as the final selling cost will calculate too high. If calculating your gross profit margin, do not include any expenses that are not directly related to the cost of the finished goods. Overhead costs are not usually included in the gross profit margin calculations. If you include your overhead costs in your cost sheet, they should be calculated on the number of units you plan to sell. So if you know that your overhead costs are X amount, then you divide it by the number of garments or units that you're going to produce. So it may end up that, okay, each unit is going to have 50 cents added to the cost sheets to calculate your overhead costs. So what is a cost sheet checklist look like? So first of all, they will always include a sketch of the garment, style number, and style numbers are really something you need to think about because it's a code. So this will be a style number or design number if applicable. Usually your design number is first, and once the garment is accepted into the line, you'll then create a style number. The style number might begin with, it's for summer, it's for summer 2021. Fabrication is from a certain mill, so you might have one number on that. So you make it so in the end it reads, you can understand what it's meaning. The design number will often be the designer's name, so it could be Francis Harder, FH, and the number might be 050 or whatever, 0155. And that designer's number then is kept in their own journal of the designs that they've particularly worked on. Once the designs are then accepted into the goods that they're going to be selling, they're going to get a style number. And that will also be something that used by the sales reps, and then they will identify obviously what it is. Fabric description with yields, packaging and labeling. Overhead costs, of course, which is a percentage. Markup percentage, what are you marking it up? 45, 50, 60%. Sales reps, what are your sales reps? If it's clothing, could be 12%. And then if it's, say, accessories, it could be 15%. But there again, some people are also charging showroom participation fee. So if you've got a sales rep and they're charging you 600 a month or 1,000 a month for showroom, how does that all add up? So you've certainly got to be thinking about what the sales rep's percentage is, plus if there's a showroom participation fee, and how does that affect your cost sheet? Getting a sales rep in New York for 1,200 a month, getting a sales rep in LA is maybe 800 a month, you know, or do you have a sales rep who's out on the road and they're just charging a percentage? So keep control of these, can be lost expenses. So make sure you don't lose it. So a small percentage for chargebacks or markdowns if selling to department stores, including shipping costs. So as I said to earlier on, department stores will often want a markdown cost of maybe 8%. So actual cost of goods, lining, which is your fabrics and your linings, your actual fusing, if you've got those, your cutting labor, and sewing. So thinking about all the things that go into it, buttons, all the zippers, that's all part of it. So that's your cost of goods. So when people talk about keystoning, when I was teaching, it drove me crazy. So keystoning is a simplified costing method, which is often used but may not result in a profit. So it's twice your cost, or is it really twice your cost? Are all your overhead expenses calculated or considered into your costing method? Will this really give you 100% markup? So example, if your basic cost is $20 and you sell for $40 and you mark it up 100%. So $40 to your cost of $20, will this really equal a 50% gross profit margin? So the gross profit margin is the foundation to calculate your net profit. So your net profit calculations without subtracting overhead costs. So your wholesale price is $32. You subtract your cost of goods. So it's your 16.16. Your gross profit margin is 16.16. Your net calculation, which is your wholesale price, your selling price of $32.32. Subtract your commission, 10%. That's 3.23 cents. After commission, now you're down to 29.09 cents. Subtract actual cost of goods, 16.16. Now your net profit margin is 12.93. That's simplified, okay? And that's without subtracting a percentage for your overheads, which will obviously bring that down. So net profit margin is your tax basis. And this is very simplified. I have a book called Costing for Profit, which is far more complex. It gives you a much better idea. But I just wanted to get this going during this brief seminar here so that you can understand what it costs to you to do a cost sheet. So operational costs. Design departments should be monitored closely for excessive expenditure. How many samples produced per season? Development for one sample is approximately, as I said, between $500 and $700. So that includes your fabrics, your first sample, cutting, sewing, fitting and adjustments. And then of course you've got to have your production samples made as well. And you'll then be doing duplicates. Use computer programs to render your first designs. It's a good idea. And then using it more and more, sending it to buyers and saying, what do you think of this? And we're thinking about using this fabrics. They may give you feedback before you're actually done your sampling. Scan your fabrics, then drape virtually into your finished styles. 3D, we're seeing this more and more. I just saw the interesting article the other day because of all these fashion shows being canceled, that they're doing 3D fashion shows. So it's a whole new world. And so what's going to happen going forward? It's really, it's going to be a very, very different journey. And having an understanding of where it is will be crucial to your operations going forward. So sales percentage, commission pay, the commission percentage for sales representatives should always be considered into your costs. So also terms of sales influencing the cost. Discounts for prompt payment are often asked for. Calculate the percentage of allowable discounts you can afford. Commission paid to your sales rep is based on the final agreed to selling price after allowable discounts and the actual units shipped to the stores. Showroom participation fee and of course trade show expenses should also be considered. These can be very costly. As we know, for any brands to go to a big trade show, you're looking at maybe $10,000 each trade show. So how many trade shows are you going to be doing? So these are also things that you need to be thinking of to calculate what it takes to do your manufacturing of garments. Better to pay a higher percentage to your sales rep than pay a monthly fixed showroom participation fee, because that can really drag you down. Again, I mean, as a side note, if you find a sales rep, check them out. I have people who have sales reps who had a sales rep, a girl who I was working with, she said, I have a sales rep in New York. I said, how are your sales? She said, oh, not very good. I said, how much are you paying? She said, oh, $1,200 a month. I said, you get on a plane tomorrow and fly out there without telling her and let's see what's going on. She did. And the sales reps had the garments in the back closet. They weren't even showing it. Okay, so these sales reps are multiple sales reps, multiple line reps, and they've got 6 lines in there. How much is that? They're making, $8,000 a month without even trying. So make sure you do your due diligence. Due diligence on who's doing your sampling, get recommendations. I can't stress it enough. Do your homework when it comes to finding reps. Do find out who they're selling to and ask them if they're happy with the reps. I had a line of clothing and I had a rep here in LA and she said, oh, I've got a rep in New York and they want you to do duplicates. So And that was all exciting. And I got these duplicates made, shipped them to New York, and didn't hear anything. So that was strange. This was years ago. I had a friend who was a designer in New York, and I said, Kathy, can you go and check on these samples in the showroom? So she did. At the end of the day, she called me up and she said, well, your samples are there, but not with your label in it. So shock. They knew I was new. I was a new on the block, and they were getting lots of orders. So they thought I wouldn't have the money to produce the orders, and they gave it to somebody they'd been working with for years. I mean, you just have to do your due diligence. I can't stress it enough. Okay, and I know we all come across like we know a lot, but there is a lot of BS out there, so make sure you do your due diligence. Better to pay a high percentage to a sales rep, as I said, than a fixed monthly showroom participation fee. Make sure you have a contract with your sales rep. And there is an example of a contract in my book with a sales rep, Fashion for Profit. Chargebacks destroy your profit margins. They undermine your gross profit margin and must be carefully monitored. Is it shipping problems, label, hangers, packaging, not producing to specifications? Is it quality control, damages, sizing issues? Is it late shipments? If you are selling a department store, it's usual to add between 12 to 15% to the cost sheets for inevitable discounts and chargebacks. If you sell mainly to specialty stores, the percentage should be around 6 to 8%. And these days, really, your main focus should be specialty stores. The department stores, as we know, are struggling like crazy. I know about 10, 15 years ago, I was working with a manufacturer here in LA. He was doing very well. He had 25 sewers, selling contemporary line. And he got a big order from one of the major stores for $250,000. And he, unfortunately, didn't read this big directory of instructions of how to ship the goods and packaging information. So from his $250,000, he got charged back $170,000. Unfortunately, that meant he lost his business. And the good news is he went on to get a doctorate, and he's now a psychologist in Hollywood. So there was a happy ending to that story. So other chargebacks and markdown costs from major department stores. Too few garments selling at full price. Retailers makes you share in the losses from discounted sales. They charge you for advertising or promoting the product in store flyers, newspaper and advertisements. Department stores charge larger manufacturers rent to have their line displayed in a high traffic area within the store. So remember, markdown money or store credit adds to the manufacturer's variable costs. Shipping dates. Ship at the beginning of the agreed to shipping date. Why? This allows you for reorders and your goods to get onto the store floor for a long period of time. They will have a longer sell-through time, and it gives the stores a possibility to see which is selling well, and they may then make reorders. Shipping at the end of your delivery window means the goods aren't on the floor that long, and they may be marked down sooner because new goods are arriving. Make sure all separates are shipped together. So they don't have your tops in one area and your bottoms arriving at a different time from another contractor. Make sure they're shipped together. It's crucial to stay on top of your production. Retail markup. So the retailers buy your products at wholesale price, then they add their profit margin costs, overhead costs, between 100 and 125% to get their retail selling price. Retailers will normally pay you for the shipping charges. So remember to negotiate that. They give instructions as to shipping and packing details. Important to understand your exact responsibilities and any hidden costs. Anticipating their demands, include them in your cost sheets. Do not let the retailers dictate their price unless you know your profit margin is workable at their asking price. Ask your sales rep not to agree to store discounts without your approval. They must call you to get an approval on any discounts. So inquire weekly with your stores or your reps as to how your line is selling through. This provides important information as to how designs are selling. Hot selling items can be carried over to next season. So if you know that these particular styles are selling well, you can say, okay, let's carry that over to next season in different fabrication. Certain bodies might be reused again in different fabrications. Do recasting, as I talked earlier on. The styles which are not selling without should be analyzed as to the problem. Is it the fabric? Is it the fit? Is it the styling? Or maybe you were ahead of the game with your trend forecasting. And sometimes when you go in the stores, have a look in the markdown rack and see what's going on. You'll see that sometimes those trends who are just beginning and not being accepted yet takes a while. Recast every new style from every new season. Rework your cost sheets. Beware of using the cost sheets when changing fabrications, even if using the same styles. There could be hidden costs, such as difference in fabrics, width, marker, finishing, pressing, because you might have to have a whole different finishing process, different fabrications, and also with fabrics. So fill in your cost sheets yourself. Invaluable lesson that will teach you the true meaning of costs. There will be times that an adjustment will need to be made for a final gross profit margin to keep them in the correct price range. Only you can make this important decision. Can the selling price be lowered? Be certain you can afford to adjust your wholesale price, and you can make sure that you can, if you will have to, mark it down. So financing your line, what happens when those orders start coming in? Begin with small orders you can self-finance so that when mistakes are made, it will not be too financially or emotionally devastating to your company. You learn by your mistakes, of course we all do. The secret of financing is understanding how to plan your growth. Finding financing for large orders when just starting a company will be difficult unless you have, we call it, your own savings, the 3 F's, which is family, friends, and fools. Sorry. Okay, line of credit. Do you own a home? Can you take a line of credit out on the home? What's your collateral? So, and it's funny, I have people say, yeah, I own a home, but I don't want to risk that. And I'm saying, well, you'll want to go to a bank and you want them to loan you money, but you're not willing to use your own collateral. Why would they would think why would they loan you money when you've got your own collateral and you're not willing to risk it? Using credit cards can make sure to pay on time, or the interest rates can be high. They're low at the moment, but still understand that. Factoring, using your assets to grow your business. Nearly impossible for you to get factors on a new business without a proven track record. So what is factoring? They will advance you the money the day you ship, and they will then collect the money from the stores, and then they will pay you minus their percentage. So you, first of all, before a factor will pick you up, you need to show experience, you need to show sales. And usually they'll want to see sales of about $500,000 before you'll get a factor your products. Difficult to get a first line of credit from traditional factors. There are refactors out there that you can go to. So they will work with a major factor to refactor, second line of credit. Will agree to loan you money against your receivables. So need to have orders from a reputable store because they check the stores out too. They don't want to risk money selling it to somebody who's a dodgy store. Start to build your reputation with factors. You'll meet factors at trade shows. Build a relationship, as I stress time and time again. Everything you do, from your suppliers to your contractors to your sales reps to your stores, are all built on relationships. And so having those relationships, so you can pick a phone up and say, hi, Bill. Hi, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late with shipping. My contractors had a problem. He got flooded. Like I had a contractor and he called me up the day before. He said, okay, all your goods are ready to ship. It was when I was working with Japan. And I said, okay, I'll be out tomorrow to pick the shipment up, and then we can ship it to Japan. I'll inspect the goods and then we can ship it. And in the morning, he called me and he said, we got broken into last night and all your goods were stolen. So what do? First of all, my Japanese relationship was good enough for them to wait. And what we had to do was I agreed to pay for the fabrication and the contractor agreed to do the labor free. It worked, but it was a very big inconvenience. But that relationship with the contractor, where the weird thing is that when they got broken into, only my goods were stolen. So I should be flattered. So factors take the risk, and so they have to be very cautious with who they're dealing with. Important to have good credit rating. Anybody with bad credit, don't even go there. So how can a factor help your business? A factor will advance funds against your receivable, written orders, and against your collateral. And if they trust the retailer. Why factor? Assist with cash flow problems. The day you ship, you receive 70 to 8%. You will pay interest to the factor, usually 2% above prime, until the invoice is paid by the store. Factors check credits of the store and they take the risk. They collect the money owed and they pay you 20% to 30% less fees and interest. Important to understand your factors agreement. Purchase order financing. This is used, but it's not good for a startup. It is a financial liability or a financial asset to your company. PO financing can be risky. Important to understand how to make it work for your company cash flow crunch. Money is loans against your written orders to help with your upfront production cost, fabric, sewing. So rather than traditional factoring that will advance the money you ship, in other words, you've had to pay to have the goods made. So they will then, traditional factor will advance goods before you get paid. That's why I said earlier on in the beginning, if you're selling to specialty stores, get the orders on a credit card. That way you can get paid the day you ship. And they still get 30 days as well to pay the credit card. However, the bigger the orders, you may need to go, and the bigger you get with your production, you may need to go to financing through traditional factoring, or if you're getting bigger and bigger orders, you may need to understand how it works with the purchase order financing for you to produce the goods, buying the fabric. So you've got the orders from a big store, so the purchase order financing will finance your production. So it will help with your upfront production costs for fabric, sewing, etc. However, it's a very expensive way to borrow money. Of course, immediately you get the money, you're paying interest on it. So you need to think about how that will affect your cost sheet. You will be borrowing and paying interest on the loan for at least 2 to 3 months before you are being paid. Can you afford this type of loan? It is important to factor the interest into your costs. Speculation of sales, inventory buildup. We see this a lot and a lot. Many design-driven companies become enamored of their own designs. They stock up without any regard of financial downside. The goods inevitably end up discounted with heavy losses to account for. So you've got to really understand how many you're going to be building up. So you can say, I've got orders. How many more should I be producing? So you should be 80% sold before asking for financing, not 20% and speculate 80% to produce. This will result in inventory buildup. So important to build inventory on orders written, not on speculation. So orders written plus maybe a certain percentage. Management of inventory is key. That company I was telling you about with the lingerie, they were another one. They had Mercedes they were driving and BMWs, and they were losing money. They were at least shipping 18 million a year and losing money. Well, they had all the kids working for them who were driving expensive cars. They had inventory up the yin yang. Oh, and you know, it's like fresh food. Inventory goes off. So you got to remember, it's better off to underestimate than overestimate. It can be very costly. So remember, 80% of your business will be in 20% of your styles. Speed to market. This is big time now. For the most part, mass-produced clothing is produced offshore, but it's coming back. Made in the US is on demand. Lower cost, of course, for offshore workers' wages has increased. So this offshore manufacturing has become more expensive, as we're seeing more and more. So you might want to think about, if you do go offshore, going to free trade countries, and also for speed to market. So you might want to go to Mexico's free trade, Guatemala's free trade, Colombia, some African countries, but I'm not sure you'll get your goods on time with that. So understanding the demand for speed to market and immediates are really, really important. So smaller orders equal good for new companies who are more nimble. So new startup companies with a smaller order is much better for you to finance it. Plus you're more nimble, and you probably can get speed to market produced much faster than the larger companies. In the long run, this is the good for your cash flow. Software to calculate costs. As you're growing, and I'm throwing all this at you, and there are already so many other things you're thinking about. So these software calculations are calculated into the use of using these software, and it's often well worth it. There are a lot of smaller computer companies out there who can do this type of costing for you and your other management. Data entry costing information into one of the many apparel specific software programs, and accurate costing is calculated for each style. Once you've got that down and you understand the cost sheets and it's in this computer system, it's very hard to get forgotten costs. So getting an understanding and building a relationship and understanding which software to use and which programs are the best for you is really important. Now, anyone who's at the stage, you can let me know and I can help you. Important to remember, the computer is a tool only as good as the user. Be sure that the information programmed into the computer is correct. Check more than one software program to find which will suit your needs. Learn to use QuickBooks and Excel. So in conclusion, stay focused on your niche, control all your costs, and consistently take the time to monitor your business. Listen to your customers' needs and your management team. Find the right team who understands the apparel industry. Even if you have to pay more to get the right person, it will pay off in the long run. It's important for a design-driven company to find a good CPA with an apparel industry experience who can prepare quarterly reports. Factors will need these reports to monitor your company. Design and sales alone will not make a successful company. You need a good CFO who will track your internal operations. Think ahead. Due to the many variables in our global economy, current costs may need to be revised. The revision will always be upwards. Deciding to produce offshore will need a plan for travel time. Keep information firsthand, not secondhand, when planning your production. I always say you want to know where the goods are made as you're beginning in this process. Find out what kind of factory they're working in. I've been to many factories in China, and you can see these amazing factories with all the most modern technology you can think of. And then the more you inquire, you find that the sewers are actually sitting in diapers. So by the time they get a break, they don't get a break because they're lining up to use the bathroom. So, you've got to understand, if you're beginning this journey, you want to make sure that everybody you're working with is treated fairly. Make sure that if you're working in domestic production, that the factories that you're working with are in compliance, that they have their contractor's license. And as I said the other day, if you're in California, you need to make sure that you have your manufacturing license. All these things are important for you as you begin the journey, as you're growing your business, that you understand that you have the right team in place to support your own business. Remember, it's not only about creating beautiful clothes, but it's about running a profitable business. Hope that's helped you. Anybody interested, please go to my website. There's a special deal there for our ATS for these trade shows. Just type in that you listen to the show with ATS, and I will give you this show discount. So it's 80% for all of the books, including Fashion for Profit, which is an intense book, which actually is also used as a textbook. I'm just starting now to teach a class online for a Chinese university. I have a costing book and a branding book. I have also the forms that you need, which has got cost sheets, blank forms that are dynamic, that you can write in all your, and contracts it's got in there that you will need with your sales reps or your contractor. And also there's a DVD. And the special is $80 for this week. And so you also get a free 20-minute free consultation. So we're taking questions. So anybody got questions for us, please let Jason know and he will take care of it.
Yeah, we do have a few here for you. One from Adriana. Can you please explain on how to calculate costs for manufacturing abroad, i.e. China, if this is the first time I do that? For example, cost for custom duties, shipping, and warehousing if needed.
I always suggest that you talk to a customs broker because it depends on where your goods are coming in from, and also what kind of fabrication. They've got different duties for different types of fabrics. And of course, you've got different duties depending on which country they come in. So there are many customs brokers out there who could help you and assist you with that. I know that we've got Robert Krieger. He's in LA. He's a customs broker. And you know, even if you're domestically producing, I remember we did a webinar and we had somebody who was producing, we had a customs broker, Robert came in to talk to the group, and he said, even if you're producing domestically, register your brand with a customs broker, because it was just at the time when jeans were all coming in from everywhere. And as you know, LA is the place for making and producing jeans. So there was somebody who was producing jeans. They came a big label eventually, but they were only making in LA, and they registered their name. And well, you know, would you believe this? Like 3 months later, they found a huge container coming in with counterfeit goods. So know who you're dealing with, reach out to a customs broker, and depending on what the goods are and which country they're being made, do your due diligence. The US Trade and Commerce is also incredibly helpful with when you're producing offshore. So I would recommend that. Hope that's helped.
Okay, a couple other questions here. Do you have any software calculating fashion/apparel costs to suggest?
Say that again, sorry, Jason.
And do you have any recommendations for software that are used to calculate fashion/apparel costs?
Well, you know, in LA, there is a company that we work with for quite some time. There's a couple of them. One of them's Ames, and you can rent their software monthly, and they're downtown. There are other ones as well. Off the top of my head, I can't think of them, but you rent them and they're pretty good. So again, do you some due diligence, and I can probably email you if you email me.
Yeah, and so Ames 360 is the one she's talking about.
Yeah, right.
Kind of a full package situation for solution for a software solution. So I just sent the link. That's a good place to start.
Very good.
The presentations will be on the ATS SlideShare probably by next week or the week after, depending on how long it takes us to compile them all. So that would be, as long as you're getting the ATS emails, so make sure you're subscribed, you're going to get a link to that once it's all created. Alternatively, you can look on the Facebook page to view the presentations, the recordings. And I will put that in the chat box so everybody can see it. So just navigate to the videos tab and you'll see all of our webinars there. Is there any way to evaluate the right price for a pattern design?
Do they mean by, you mean a patent? To have a design patented?
Pattern. Pattern. Yeah. So, yeah, Vera, could you explain that a little bit more? I guess she's asking what if there's a general price for to evaluate the creation of a pattern design.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, obviously it's going to be different prices for a t-shirt than it is for a pair of pants or a tailored jacket. So I always say maybe for a tailored jacket, you're looking at like, I don't know, maybe $800 because there's a lot of work in it. You have lining and interfacing and buttons and all the rest of it. So t-shirt, maybe they can do a t-shirt pattern for $100 or something. It depends on what else they're doing. Are they doing sampling? Are you buying the fabrication? Are they buying it? Depends on what goes into it. So again, make sure that you are working with the right people and do your due diligence. If you do find people who can do your production, check them out. I've had so many experiences working with people who've gone to the wrong people and it's cost them an arm and a leg to end up with a disaster. So pay to make sure that you're working with qualified people.
Yeah, a lot of the questions about specific products is difficult to answer. As Francis just said, you know, the best way to do it is just to ask for a quote, you know, from a sample maker, I think is the best way to do it. But again, it's mostly case by case basis. Let's see if we have anybody else here. The shipping. Okay. The shipping costs by air from overseas have skyrocketed in the last 50 days.
Yeah.
Prices have been at least 3 times what it was in February. How do you plan for this for future costing?
Well, let's just hope it's going to come down. I mean, I've tried to ship some stuff to England and they're not even doing mail delivery to England. So we're in this phase now and hopefully we're going to get through it. And so hopefully calculations will go back to what they were before. But of course, we're seeing that because of speed to market demands that people are flying in goods. So this can result again in your garment increasing in price. So hopefully, you know, who knows what's going to happen. I can't speak for the airlines, but it's, you know, if they're all hurting, everybody's canceling flights, right, Jason? And we're not in Miami this week. And so they're all hurting. So they're grabbing the money where they can.
Okay, next is, I have a new bridal and wedding wear brand manufacturing out of India. Wanted to consult.
Okay.
Tara, you're asking if you wanted to consult, how to consult with Francis, or was there another question you're trying to ask there? Let's wait for the response. In the meantime, regarding factoring, is there a typical industry percentage to plan into costs, i.e. 5%, something around there?
Well, depending on how many units, again, you have to divide your units by how much they're charging you. So if they're advancing 50,000 to you and they're charging you, I don't know, maybe 2% above price. So maybe they're charging you just general, let's just say 6%. So you have to calculate that on, it's not going to be 6% on every unit. It's going to be calculated on the average per unit. So you really need, you need to sort of understand a little bit of mathematics.
Mm-hmm. Tara's asking, she wanted to know the best way to get in touch with you to consult. Is that by email or the website, Francis? Best
way is through email. You could go through either, but francis@fashionforprofit.com. It's on that last slide, if you can see it. Francis with an E and not an I, I'm not the Pope, at fashionforprofit.com. Not yet, anyway. We've not had a female Pope.
You're the Pope of the fashion industry, that's for sure. Okay, let's see. Then we have a couple over here. I would like to represent brands from Chile, designers. ISM new. I'm new to this market. Where is the best place to start?
Well, get the book, Fashion for Profit. you really need to understand all aspects of producing a garment. And if you're representing, say you're representing anybody from outside America, then there's a lot to learn on that. I do quite a lot of seminars for companies entering the American market. That's why I was working with the United Nations in Peru and Nepal, helping them merchandise the goods to ship to America. What's the American market like, and understanding what, sizing and things like that, because each country is going to be different.
Okay, let's see. What percentage would you expect to pay an independent rep?
An independent rep, well, it depends. If you're doing accessories, you're looking at 15%. If it's for garments, anything 10 to 12%. But as I said earlier, you may also be asked to pay a showroom participation fee. You're better off to pay a higher percentage rather than showroom participation fee.
Okay. Should I add in my cost of shipping / customs when receiving fabric to my costing?
Yes. So if you're buying fabric and you think it's $5 a yard, and then you've got to add on your shipping and your handling. So then your average, $5 a yard might turn out to be $5.25. So again, thinking about how much you're shipping in will have to be averaged out as to what those overheads are that affect the price.
Okay, let's see. I've got a couple more coming in on the Q&A side. Based on your own experience, what is the realistic percentage of shipping costs in the final cost for companies sourcing in Asia, China, Bangladesh, etc.?
Well, that depends on the bulk, how you're shipping. And I always advise anybody who's producing goods offshore to get an agent. The agents will ship the goods before it's shipped to you. So they will inspect it. And then if everything's going well, they will agree to have it shipped. The last thing you want is goods to be shipped to you and you end up with a warehouse full of goods that are incorrect. So, and this is, I can make generalizations, we all can. But having an agent to inspect the goods are really important. It's usually about 6% to being above the price. So whatever you're costing for the goods to be made in China, then you add your 6% for your inspector to inspect the goods. So another thing that's important if you are thinking about going offshore is understanding the culture. We're all different. And so if you're working, like you talked about having goods made in India, they do beautiful stuff. However, they have tendencies to do sort of odd things too. So, you may want certain embroidery and they've run out of a certain color, so they'll just subsidize another color, and you end up with the goods being shipped to you and it's not what you ordered. And so having a good understanding of who you're working with, get the goods shipped. If you are getting the goods shipped from a foreign country, depending on how much your units are, but get an agent who can help you inspect the goods before they're shipped.
Yeah, doing shipping overseas is one thing you don't want to be doing by yourself. There's too many factors, too many variables. So you want to hire a professional to take care of that. If anybody's looking for resources as far as customs brokers, or maybe a good way to get in touch with an agent in a country that you want to work in is through the country's apparel associations, which we are partnered with a lot of them. So if that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend you going to the ATS website and getting in touch with one of our matchmaking reps. If they will point you in the right direction, if they can't, they'll find the answer for you. So let me get a link here to the virtual homepage. Yeah, again, a lot of these questions are a little hard to ask because they're more specific. So if you break it down with one of our reps, and they'll be able to put you in the right direction. Let's see, I think we have one more come in. Tara. I've been recently approached by one of the topmost hotels in India, Mumbai, more tourist traffic for a fact, and New Delhi to retail my line with a participation fee. Commercials is yet to be negotiated. However, they want my line hopefully when the world opens up again by the end of this year. Is it a good decision as much as I don't mind paying margins, but not very happy about the showroom lease? What should I do?
Not sure. You're talking about showrooms over there in India, or you're talking about showroom here? Not sure about
That's
that.
what you're asking. Tara, are you talking about showrooms in India? For a second to answer. Francis, Gloria's asking if there is a code for the $80 discount, the $80 special.
Oh, yeah, ATS.
Yeah, just ATS.
Then to go back to the lady in.
Yeah, so she said a showroom in the hotel in the Taj Palace Hotel. So that is in India.
So they want to charge her for selling her product. So they're going to buy the product and then charge her.
So I guess in line with my participation fee. Hold on a second.
Are they taking it on consignment? I mean, or are they going to pay her? They place an order and.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand this question. Let me just read it one more time. Been recently approached by one of the top hotels in India. So she's getting charged a participation fee to retail her line in that hotel. Are you saying, she says the commercials is yet to be negotiated. Are you talking advertising, or I'm not quite sure what she means by that.
So
okay. On consignment.
No way. No way. It's bad enough consignment in America, but our offshore, you may as well forget it.
Did that answer your question, Tara? Go ahead and shoot us a note.
Sorry. But you know what you'll end up with, you ship the goods on consignment and the consignment store take it. How can they lose? Okay. They then, people come in, try them on, get makeup all over it, and then they ship it back to you and you end up with nothing. No way. No way, Jose.
All right. So we got one more from, in your opinion, knowing problems with showrooms in the past, what are some improvements that you would like to see go forward after this pandemic?
What do I want to see going forward? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so having already been speaking about the problems, the issues with showrooms that you can run into, are there any improvements that you would like to personally see moving forward after this pandemic?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you go to the marts, and a lot of the showrooms are closing up. And the size of those marts, if you're downtown, the New Mart, the Cooper Building, the Gary Building, and of course the Calmart. You go in the Calmart, it used to be absolutely buzzing all over the place and full. You go there now, they've now closed off one. They've got there's three buildings in the Calmart, A, B, and C. And the only part they're going to have showrooms in is the C building. So, you know, the showrooms, it's changing. I think that, and also for trade shows too, because if you're a buyer and you know who you buy from and what kind of labels, you go direct now to the manufacturer. And so sales reps may be going back on road. Maybe that's the way it's going to be. But of course, if you find the right rep who represents your goods, they're worth it. I mean, there's some wonderful reps out there. They've got the connections to open up doors for you. So again, do your due diligence. You know, sort of having somebody in India who wants your product and they're going to pay you after the sell. How in the hell are you going to trace that one? I do not know. The trouble is we all get caught up in our own ego. I'm sorry to say this, but if people like your goods and they order, you know, they order it and they're willing to pay for it, fine. But if they order the goods and they want you to ship it to them, and if it doesn't sell and they're going to ship it back to you in 6 months, and what are you going to do with it?
That's pretty interesting about the showrooms in downtown LA. I remember when I was living there, like you said, those were very busy places filled to the brim with different showrooms from different brands and labels. So it's interesting how the industry is shifting, especially.
Oh, yeah, it is. Every, in all aspects, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have any more questions for Frances? If anybody wants to find out more information, her website is fashionforprofit.com. I highly recommend you go there. It's an amazing resource. And again, you know, Frances is one of those people that offers the 20-minute free consultation. So that's something I would certainly take advantage of. It'll alleviate a lot of frustrations from doing your own personal research. So definitely ask the people who've been in this industry for a long time. Well, with that, since there's no more questions, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you so much, Frances. Again, it's always a pleasure working with you, and thank everyone for being with us today.
Thank you, Jason, and good luck to everybody. And I hope to hear from you sometime. Hope everybody stays safe and well. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.